Right, we're going. Order. Lizzi Collinge to move the motion.
Thank you, Ms Furniss. It's a pleasure to serve here today under your chairship. I beg to move that this House has considered Ada Lovelace Day and government support for women in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, also known by its acronym STEM. Today, many of my colleagues will talk about modern women in STEM, but I confess that I'm mostly interested in the fascinating woman that was Ada Lovelace. Ada was born in 1815 into the nobility, the child of two very talented parents. Ada's most famous parent was Lord Byron, whilst her mother, Lady Annabella, was a gifted mathematician. Lord Byron called his wife the Princess of Parallelograms, and later, when they fell out, his mathematical Medea. Ada never knew her father, and her education was organised by her mother. She inherited both the mathematical genius of her mother, but also the creativity of her father. In her early teens, she was distracted from her proper studies by designing a flying machine in the form of a horse with a steam engine inside. She's now best known for working alongside Charles Babbage on his hypothetical computer, the Analytical Engine. Ada was a pioneer in computer science. She saw the possibilities of computing when no one else could. She understood technology not just as a set of calculations, but as a way to unlock creativity and serve humanity. And for years, Ada was denied the recognition and credit she deserved for her insight into the potential for computing. She displayed a grasp of mathematical imagination far beyond most of her contemporaries. But we know that talent alone is not enough. Innovation needs opportunity, guidance, and room to fail and try again. Too often, women and girls are denied that chance, and with them, ideas that could transform our world are lost. How many Ada Lovelaces have we lost because they did not have access to that support? Because while she was brilliant, Ada's achievements did not happen solely as a product of her talent, but they were made possible by her position in society and through the efforts of women around her, by a mother determined to see her educated, by tutors she could only access through her social status, and by the circles she moved in, which led her to her collaborator, Charles Babbage. But even with those advantages, it took remarkable persistence for Ada to be part of this work, and her insight would go unrecognised for generations. I want to take a moment now to thank Sue Charman-Anson, who's in the gallery with us today. She is the founder of Ada Lovelace Day and has given me much of her expertise on Ada. This speech would not be possible without her contribution, and in some cases I have used her words directly. I also want to put on record my thanks for all the work she has done over many years promoting women in STEM. I'll happily give way.
Thank you. And thank you to the Chair for having us here today. I thank the Honourable Friend for giving way, and would she like to join me in recognising the essential work of student-led groups such as the Women Plus and Engineer Group at the University of Strathclyde in my constituency, who champion and support each other in overcoming the considerable barriers to entry that still remain in the science, technology and engineering industries.
Yeah, I thank my honourable friend for that intervention, and I think it's absolutely groups like Women Plus and Engineering groups in the University of Strathclyde who can do so much to support other women in STEM. And I must also put on the record my thanks, Chair, to the Honourable Member for Birmingham Northfield for his inspiration for today's debate. Now back to Ada. It was her mother, Lady Annabella, who allowed and encouraged Ada to pursue her intellectual passions. Annabella hoped that mathematics would temper whatever dangerous poetical tendencies young Ada might have inherited from her father. Ada was a curious child. As we know, at 13, she was designing flying machines. By 15, Ada had already impressed a man called Augustus de Morgan, a mathematician at the forefront of symbolic logic. He tutored her in maths and logic, exchanging dozens of letters. He even wrote that, had she been a man, she would have had the potential to become an original mathematic investigator, perhaps of first-rate eminence. But Ada was a woman, and as such, De Morgan believed, like many at the time, that mathematics might simply be too strenuous for her. Now, Ada had been plagued with health problems, first headaches and then a bout of measles at 13 that left her paralysed. Confined to a bed, Ada would have to relearn how to walk at 15. And De Morgan believed that maths problems would only exacerbate her frailty. The great tension of mind which they, the maths problems, require is beyond the strength of a woman's physical power of application. Ada, of course, ignored him. And at a time when women were not allowed to go to university, her academic development relied on a series of tutors and mentors cobbled together for her. She burnt through one tutor's entire mathematical knowledge in just a few weeks.
On that point, would my honourable friend give way?
I will happily give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I will thank her for calling this debate today, which is on a matter close to my own heart. My first job out of university was supporting women into STEM. And today I'd like to pay tribute to Georgina Barnard from my constituency of Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villages. Last month we opened an Institute of Technology in Stafford, which is the best in the country. She has led that project from start to finish, and I called her to tell her about this debate today and ask her what she thought was most important to help young women get into STEM, to face the challenges that they can. And from her perspective, she said it's making sure that at an early age as possible, young women are supported to see themselves in those careers. So would my honourable friend agree with me that, and Georgina, that making sure that we do have those visible role models is so important?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and I absolutely agree with her and Georgina that having those role models, having those mentors is really important. And actually one of Ada's mentors was a woman called Mary Somerville. She was a scientist and polymath. And it was Mary who introduced Ada to Charles Babbage, whose work would capture Ada's interest and provide the inspiration for her most significant contributions. Babbage was a professor of mathematics and a celebrity in the scientific world. He was a visionary with countless unfinished plans for clockwork calculating machines. His current fascination was his latest device, the analytical engine, a proposed improvement on his earlier and uncompleted difference machine. The analytical engine would, he said, be able to perform any calculation set before it. However, patience had worn thin with his parliamentary sponsors, who, having funded him to the tune of £1.7 million in today's money, refused to fund a second machine whilst the first was unfinished. So he was forced to look abroad. And after he gave a lecture at the University of Turin, the Italian engineer Luigi Menabrea wrote up his notes and published them in French. And a man called Charles Wheatstone suggested that Ada translate them into English because she was fluent in French and other languages. She showed the translation to Babbage, who was ecstatic, and he suggested that Ada add her own notes because, as he put it, she understood the machine so well. Her footnotes tripled the paper's original length because Ada understood Babbage's device, but she also saw further. She rightly saw it as what we would call a general-purpose computer. For Babbage, these machines were calculators, nothing more. But Ada saw past that. She understood that if you have a machine that can manipulate numbers, and numbers can represent any value from letters to musical notes, you have a machine with a grip on a world beyond mathematical calculations. And crucially, Ada's vision for computing understood that technology must be applied. It must be applied, in her words, for the purposes of mankind. Technology must serve humanity, not the other way around. And at the time, Ada's ideas amounted to little more than a vision. She was working, remember, in the 19th century, before there was even any functional computers. Her work wasn't revisited until nearly a century later, when Alan Turing quoted her in his work. I'll happily give way.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to the Honourable Lady for giving way. And the Ada Lovelace event earlier this week in Parliament was an excellent way of highlighting, for many of us, the importance of women in manufacturing and STEM. But Ada Lovelace was clearly visionary. And so does my honourable friend agree with me that we need to keep that visionary sense at the focus and heart of all that we do when we're encouraging the next generation of women into STEM and into engineering? And that means encouraging the FE sector, working with businesses, and also apprenticeship providers such as Incom from Aldridge, who were at that event earlier in the week.
I absolutely agree with the Honourable Lady. Having that visionary view of science, that view of looking beyond what is to what could be, is absolutely essential, and the providers and the businesses that she talked about are absolutely essential to that. I absolutely agree. So Ada contributed to a debate that is extremely pertinent today, discussing the possibility of machine intelligence back in the 1800s. Ada said, "The analytical engine has no pretensions to originate anything. It can do whatever we know how to order it to perform. Only when computers originate things should they be believed to have minds." This is in contrast to Alan Turing's later thought that computers should be understood in terms of their ability to appear to think. He termed her thoughts Lady Lovelace's objection, which I think is rather beautiful. What developments would we have seen by now if we'd understood the potential Ada saw earlier? What developments do we still lose out on because we don't see the potential in women? Barriers keeping women and girls back from STEM don't just disadvantage them, they disadvantage all of us. The 2025 Lovelace report, written by Oliver Wyman in collaboration with the organisation We Are Tech Women, found that the tech industry loses between £2 billion and £3.5 billion every year through a broken career framework that drives out talent, with women bearing the heaviest cost. I'll happily give way.
Thank you. Thank you for securing this debate. Thank you for giving way. Ada Lovelace, her legacy is absolutely stellar, as everybody points out. I've got the slightest link because I was lucky enough to get married in Newstead Abbey, in her father's ancestral home. We all want a piece of Ada. She's a name that people recognise and whose contribution is rightly credited. But what really concerns me is what you were saying about the Lovelace report. It found that 80% of women surveyed have recently left or are interested in leaving their tech roles. As you've already touched upon, if you can't see it, then you can't be it. Does the member agree that it is an absolute travesty that only 20% of people in tech are women and that we have to work to combat that?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and I absolutely agree it is a travesty. And what's more, we are losing women in STEM at a terrible rate, which I'm going to come on to. The UK has made bold commitments to become a global leader in machine learning and digital technology. But to meet our goals, we need to double or triple our workforce capacity in that sector. How can we do that when there's a steady exodus of women from STEM, with approximately 40,000 to 60,000 women each year leaving their tech or digital role? Now, surface-level takes have attributed this to caregiving responsibilities, but surveys from the Lovelace report found that caregiving was cited in less than 3% of cases. The true culprits are systemic: underpayment, stalled career progression, lack of opportunities for influence and leadership. Surveys show over 70% of experienced women pursue extra qualifications, yet 60% still struggle to go on into leadership roles. And this damages progress and profits. Evidence suggests that not only do more diverse teams come up with better solutions to problems, but companies with more women in senior leadership roles are also more profitable. Change comes through different perspectives, different worldviews, and different visions for the future. And on that vision for the future, Chair, we now have the world's most powerful military in the Pentagon running a programming language called Ada. That's quite a legacy, and we need to ensure that that legacy is available for future women and girls in STEM. And finally, Chair, to my daughter Ada, I really want her to see the story of the woman who inspired her name. And I want her to know that nobody can tell her what she can or cannot achieve. Thank you.
Should Bob now, if they wish to be called in the debate? Yeah, you may sit now. The question is that this House has considered Ada Lovelace Day and government support for women in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. I will call Ian Sollom to begin.
Thank you, Ms Furniss. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this afternoon, and I congratulate the honourable member for securing this really important debate. Now, some members may remember a debate I held a few months ago on the contribution of maths to the UK, where there was, I think, a good cross-party agreement that increasing the quality and uptake of mathematical education will be central to the government's growth mission. And I'm not going to repeat the arguments I made in that debate, but I would like to focus on maths today, if I may. And historically, one of the worst performing subjects in terms of gender equality, and one where issues emerge far before many women can reach that leaky pipeline, as it's called, of a STEM career that others may mention as well today. The gender imbalance in STEM isn't just about fairness, it's about meeting a national need. Jobs in engineering and technology are expected to grow faster than other occupations across the UK through to 2030, and yet women make up just 15.7% of engineering and technology workforce, which is quite stark. Now, around the country, excellent work is already being done to increase the participation of women and girls in maths. And just yesterday evening, I attended a reception to celebrate the achievements of UMaths, the network of university maths schools, tackling underrepresentation in STEM through core programmes of maths and further maths A-levels with a university linked enrichment. One of these is Cambridge Maths School, which serves my constituency and which I was delighted to visit earlier this year. And I think something to be really proud of for them is that already nearly 50% of the school's Year 13 pupils are female, which is amazing considering that on a national level that is sadly nowhere near that level of female-male parity in the uptake of maths and further maths A-level. Over 10,000 male pupils took A-level further maths in 2023 to 24, but the number of female pupils taking the subject was less than half of that. And while the Cambridge Maths School have clearly made a huge impact simply through their core offerings and ethos, they're also looking to increase the support for female students even more. So over the summer, in partnership with the university and Raspberry Pi, they ran a free Girls Enjoy Maths summer school that offered interactive workshops, talks from leading female mathematicians, and time to speak with current Cambridge Maths School students about their experience, giving female students that much needed opportunity to meet role models and see that mathematics doesn't have to be the masculine-dominated world it may have been for quite a long time, is vital to increasing their participation. But it is through days like Ada Lovelace Day that we can really see that, that it doesn't need to be sort of a historical anomaly. We should be celebrating Ada as much as possible, and I'm really glad that we've got this debate to do that. So if we are to truly open access to STEM careers to all, I don't think we can rely on just that provision of maths schools that separate students into the STEM versus humanities dichotomy either. And I think certainly in the Liberal Democrats we do believe in a broad and balanced approach to curriculum. That really gives students, no matter what subjects they study actually, the skills that they will need in careers that are increasingly technology driven. And it matters particularly, I think, to women, because research shows that gender gap really does open up early. By age 10, only 11% of girls aspire to engineering careers, compared to 44% of boys. And between 2019 and 2023 alone, interest in science among 11 to 14-year-old girls declined by 10 percentage points. Now, female students, the evidence shows, are generally more likely to want to study a broader range of subjects than their male peers. And it's partly that reason that it's speculated that the uptake of further maths, a subject that makes one twice as likely to pursue a STEM degree, a mathematically intensive STEM degree, so low. You know, if you take further maths, that means filling 2 of your A-level options with maths, which narrows the opportunity for a broader option with more humanities. And because of that, many female pupils opt for only single maths, even if they are capable of much, much more. So, if there is that sort of suffering from sort of early pigeonholing, then I think the other thing that I would highlight is that opportunity to re-skill. And yes, absolutely.
The honourable gentleman for giving way. Does he agree with me that there's a very important role for apprenticeships in this as well, particularly apprenticeships in the tech sector? I have to say there's some excellent apprenticeships of that nature in my constituency in Reading and the surrounding area. And I wondered if he would like to perhaps offer a few words of support to the government's new policy of increasing the number of apprenticeships and setting a much higher target for both apprenticeships and university entrance.
I would certainly support the increase of apprenticeships. I think getting more young people onto any course that offers opportunity is what it's all about ultimately, and I look forward to scrutinising the government's white paper on post-16 education when it comes out in the near term, I believe. But it is also about lifelong opportunities as well, and you know, giving people that opportunity that may have been sort of hampered by those early choices that they had to take at a young age to reskill and join the STEM workforce later in life. And next week, I did want to just highlight the Institute for Manufacturing of the University of Cambridge is co-hosting the Women in Manufacturing Conference in Coventry. And it's a sort of clear recognition that from the sector, all about breaking down barriers, supporting women to enter and progress in manufacturing careers. That breaking down of barriers to women's inclusion in STEM careers does, I think, require cross-departmental thinking with the DWP, education, DCIT, all involved, and I hope that it's something the Minister can commit to today. Thank you.
The limiting for future, I can't speak today, I need to go home. 3 minutes, I'm afraid, and the first person is Jo Platt.
Thank you, Ms Furniss, and it's an honour to serve under your chairship, and I want to thank the member for Morecambe and Lonsdale for bringing this really, really important debate to the House today. So, as we know, Ada Lovelace Day, it's a time to celebrate achievements of women in science, technology, engineering and maths. And I'm honoured to speak in this debate today to champion women in STEM in Lee and Atherton and across the country, and to commit to fostering progress for women to thrive in these often male-dominated fields. I'm going to sort of cut my speech as I go. I always get the time limit on me, but I'm going to talk about some of the work that I did in between being elected, and I think it's important to mention my time at Lee Spinners Mill. So I was the former manager of the mill, and I would often talk about Ada Lovelace when showing visitors around the heritage looms in the scutching room. So the punched cards used to automate the weaving of intricate patterns were a key part of the tour. And it's often said that they were the very inspiration that Ada Lovelace drew upon when developing the idea for the analytical engine, widely considered the first computer. But just a few floors up from the scutching room, on floor 4, sits the newly formed Northwest Computer Museum, and it's an interactive showcase of the history of computing. It's a brilliant space that connects our industrial past with our digital future, and Ada Lovelace's legacy is woven through both. But remarkably, still, 80% of the businesses at the mill are run by women. Now, that's a legacy and a powerful example of strong female leadership, and it's a project that I'm extremely proud of, and it's not the first time I've mentioned it in this House. But we must support pathways that nurture future women entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers and tech leaders. And let's not forget the arts, humanities and creative sectors. That means investing in education, mentorship and inclusive workplaces. It means challenging the stereotypes that tell girls STEM isn't for them. And it's not just about gender. Class plays a part too. So working class women are doubly overlooked in these elite spaces. So when I walk into a meeting, I bring my femininity and my northern working class spirit with me. So let me shine a light on two examples of brilliant women driving STEM innovation in the Lee and Atherton constituency. So Kat is a leading figure at Hackspace in Lee, and she's based in the Mill, a dynamic collaborative hub where people passionate about tech, science and digital art come together to create, experiment and inspire. It's a space built on curiosity and community, and it's inspirational to see a woman at the helm of such a forward-thinking work. And then there's Emily Simcox. Emily is of the Computer Explorers, which offers children aged 3 to 13 specialist computer classes, specialising in an engaging blend of fun and education that's designed to capture the imagination, sparking their creativity and preparing them for a tech-driven future.
Chair, a real pleasure to serve under your chairship. A big thank you to the Honourable Lady for Morecambe and Lonsdale for leading the debate. In the short time that the Honourable Lady has been here, she has shown herself to be formidable, to be dedicated and committed, and today on the subject matter, well done. Excellent. We all enjoyed that. A real pleasure to see the Minister in her place. I'm not sure about double jobbing. I think you were a whip the last time I seen you. You've been now elevated, or maybe you're doing both. But I wish you well in the job that you do. I'm just going to give very quickly, Madam Chair, a Northern Ireland perspective to these debates. I do so because I remind everyone here we're all part of this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland better together. And because of that, we share the ideas that we do back home with what we do over here. And hopefully we can all learn. I know in Northern Ireland that the narrow STEM subjects of engineering, technology and computing, in 2021, 59% of students gained qualifications were male, 41% were female. So the differential in those subjects wasn't too much, but there are other gaps within the Department of Economy that they have identified, and that is specific engineering and computer science. So there is more to do. Women are often underrepresented in many STEM workforce roles, especially in technical roles in Northern Ireland. There are many initiatives we use in Northern Ireland. Some of those have been set up to support women gain skills and unlock access to this sector. Organisations like Women's Tech and the We Bridge programme in Ulster University provide training, personal development to non-traditional careers, especially in sectors like construction and IT. Those aren't alien to ladies, and they can do the job as well. So those are things we want to encourage. Careers advice in schools is so important, Madam Chair, especially in sixth form. I often hear of younger ones saying how they remember being clear on their options, and that careers advisors in schools from certain employments really help them get a steer on the kind of industry that they would be involved in. I give a young girl a work experience in my office back in 2017. She's now a member of my staff. That young girl had the social skills and what was needed, I believe, to move forward. If we don't encourage and have more female role models in STEM subjects, that makes it harder for younger women to believe these pathways are accessible to them. It's all about breaking barriers, providing opportunity at a young age to ensure that progression is possible. So I believe it's important that we encourage, we bring forward encouraging news from all our constituency. I conclude with this, Madam Chair. I'm going to keep the executive to your three minutes. To conclude, Madam Chair, we cannot overlook any section of society for the future of our economy and the workforce. We have, I believe, world-class potential across the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And if we want to stay competitive and creative, we must ensure that these opportunities are open to everyone to succeed. And I believe that they are in Northern Ireland. I believe they can be here as well. Thank you.
Your chairship, and thank you so much to my friend, honourable friend, the member for Lonsdale and Morecambe for bringing this important debate. Other members have already outlined some fantastic initiatives to encourage women and girls in STEM, and they are so important. There's one in my constituency at All Girls Sandbach High School where they run an extracurricular club called CAUC, Complete and Utter Chaos, for their female students. To be honest, it doesn't sound chaotic to me. Together they design and build electric cars in the school workshop, and then they race them against other schools at prestigious circuits around the country, including at Silverstone. I've been and seen it, and it is honestly phenomenal. They have this car building workshop. It's just incredible. The aim is to inspire and encourage female students to pursue careers in traditionally male-dominated industries, and we know only 14.5% of UK engineers are female at the moment. The club looks to expose its students to that sort of unique learning opportunity with hands-on, and many of them have gone on to do STEM degrees, become engineers, and having had placements including with Bentley and with the F1 racing team. They're doing great stuff. There's also the Jodrell Bank Observatory in my constituency, which I truly love and have spoken about before. I should mention here that a member of my immediate family works for the University of Manchester, but elsewhere within it. There are lots of fantastic women at Jodrell Bank doing groundbreaking research and discovery, and I want to take a moment to recognise the fact that Jodrell Bank has made really active efforts to improve the percentage of women using their radio telescope and using double-blind evaluation of applications for it, and having done so are now seeing 50% of the usage of the telescope being by female scientists, which I think is fantastic and what we should all be aiming for. But the point I want the government to look at from this is that there is a massive problem with childcare for people doing PhD studentships. And I don't regard childcare as exclusively women's work, nor do I regard it as exclusively their financial cost. But nonetheless, if you do a PhD and you are a young woman wishing to have children, it takes years and it is quite likely to be within a time in which you might want to have kids. At the moment, if you do a fully funded PhD, paid for by the state, you are not eligible for free childcare hours within nursery settings. An average PhD stipend is 15 grand a year. An average full-time nursery place is 12.5 grand a year. You would be completely unable to live and parent on that sort of money. So I think we could change this very urgently. And I think it's worth mentioning Dame Jocelyn Bell discovered radio pulsars during her PhD. We could be losing all kinds of talent by having this restriction. Thank you.
Serve under your chairmanship, and I genuinely thank my colleague, the Member of Parliament for Lonsdale and Morecambe, for entering this debate. Ashley Combe, which sits above Porlock Weir, was Ada Lovelace's home for many suburbs. She would walk across West Somerset, admiring its fauna and flora, including the forked spleenwort. There is a famous quote from the late, great Christopher Hitchens: "The cure for poverty has a name. It's called the empowerment of women." And it is in that spirit that I speak today. Despite the rich intellectual legacy Ada has left behind in her summer spot, STEM paths in the area, and in particular girls going into STEM, leave much to be desired. The West Somerset part of my constituency, for all its natural beauty, suffers from the lowest social mobility in the country and ranks among the poorest travel times to employment in the country at the 96th percentile. In our part of the world, we are hampered by inaccessibility, which stifles ambition and aspiration. The development of Hinkley C in the years ahead will lead to inward commuting and a further exacerbation of inequality in transportation. I laud the fact that Nicola Favell has been appointed Station Director at Hinkley Point C, having migrated from Hinkley B, where she became only the second woman to head up a British nuclear power station. A cultural sea change was needed, and I know that Nicola has been supported to no end by the CEO of the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, David Peaty, and his fantastic team. Enter the picture the wonderful Ada in Porlock Community Action Group, and I'm delighted to say that members from the committee at Ada in Porlock join us here today. Still somewhat in its infancy, having run for just a year and a half, it has been at the heart of a number of the community projects.
These initiatives have unveiled the truth that the gap between male and female interest in STEM widens, although the number of STEM students has risen by half in the last 5 years. In each generation, there is an Ada Lovelace, there is a Marie Curie. Somewhere out there today, there is a female scientific savant who does not know yet. It is the potential force, that potential energy to borrow from scientific speak, which has not been tapped into to the fullest extent. That is where the wonder lies, the randomness of greatness, the untapped potential of so many. There are more Adas out there, we know it, especially in Porlock and West Somerset, in my beautiful, wonderful constituency.
Lawrence Turner.
And I'm truly grateful to my honourable friend, the member for Morecambe and Lonsdale, for securing this debate and for her powerful speech at the start. One of this debate's origins was a question raised by a pupil at St Thomas Aquinas School in Kings Norton. They wanted to know what more can be done to improve the share of women and girls in STEM subjects and STEM employment. And I hope the fact that we are asking ourselves these questions today will be taken as proof that the representations to us as MPs do make a difference in Parliament. If more time is available, I would love to be able to talk about the work going on in my constituency to sustain and improve those shares, and the many women, in addition to Ada Lovelace, who have made foundational contributions to the development of science and mathematics. But there is something that draws us back to Ada Lovelace in particular. Her insights into the possibilities of computing and the way that she speaks to us 200 years on seems sometimes to be more of our time than her own. Yet she was also unbound by today's boundaries between arts, humanities, and other subjects. As she wrote in one early letter, "Give me poetical science." And perhaps it was Ada Lovelace's combination of science and poetry that allowed her to see, in a way that no contemporary did, the true potential of the analytical engine and general purpose computing. As has been said, her comments on the creative potential and limitations of computing and her foresight about the power of general purpose programming to improve the common betterment of mankind speak in a remarkable way to the debates that we have in this House today. And on the question of whether Ada was a true programmer, the fact that the first and famous Note G contained a very small bug, and her periods of intense concentration followed by occasional intense frustration, I think will resonate with anyone who has engaged in programming themselves. And as my humble friend said, we should imagine too what might have been accomplished if Ada Lovelace and uncounted millions before and after had enjoyed the same formal and informal advantages as men. How many great discoveries in the fields of medicine, manufacturing and technology have been delayed or are still undiscovered because there were not women in the room. But Ada Lovelace, towards the end of her life, hoped that she would leave a mathematical legacy, and the inspiration that she does leave, I think, means that that is fulfilled. To finish, Ms Furniss, as my humble friend asked, this is a time to ask ourselves that famous question, what should we tell our daughters?
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Ms Furniss, and I thank my honourable friend, the member for Morecambe and Lonsdale, for securing this very, very important debate. Ada Lovelace Day is surely an occasion for us all to pay tribute to a trailblazer in the fields of science and technology, and recognise the importance of women who work in these sectors today. Ada was an incredible figure, the first computer programmer, and she remains an absolute role model to many women in their STEM careers and girls who aspire to follow them. She leaves behind such an impressive legacy, and I hope that we can continue to honour her by empowering more women to get involved in these fields. It is a deeply personal issue to me. Working in the life sciences and technology field prior to entering Parliament, I saw firsthand the tremendous skills and knowledge that women provide in this field.
However, I also saw the difficulties women face in pursuing a career in what remains a male-dominated sector. As a chief executive of a company in the science and technology field, I boosted the number of staff working in the company to more than 50%, and all of my senior leadership team, all women. I'm also a father of 3 girls, 2 of whom are chemists, so I utterly recognise the importance of women working in science. And currently, women make up less than 30% of the STEM and science workforce. That's why I welcome the goals of the government's industrial strategy, which aims to increase women's representation in the sector to 35% by 2035. And I also welcome the Equality Charter, which is set out by the government, which ensures that the firm's diversity data is publicly available. It's disappointing that previous governments have failed to capitalise on this issue, and that's why I'm reassured by the government's approach and intention to unleash the skills, the abilities, the passions that many women have in this field. And as we remember Ada, let us appreciate her efforts as an inspirational figure for women in STEM. Let us recognise her dedication, passion and the resilience of many women in STEM today. And let us commit to educating, training and employing many more women in STEM.
Yeah. Honour to serve under your chairship. And I want to thank the member for Morecambe and Lonsdale for securing this debate and beating me to it. I'm absolutely delighted. It is absolutely wonderful to be here to talk in this debate commemorating Ada Lovelace Day, which was earlier this week, which was founded by Sue Charman-Anderson. It's so wonderful to see you sitting there, I have to say. Ada Lovelace was the world's first computer programmer, a woman who saw long before her time that technology could be both analytical and creative. She reminds us that progress in science depends not just on logic but on imagination, on putting the A for arts into STEAM, because when creativity meets science, innovation truly thrives. It's also remiss of me not to mention that I am the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Diversity in STEM and the APPG for FinTech. But I also speak today as the founder of Labour Women in Tech, a network that brings together women from across the tech sector to try and push to get more women into the tech sector, but also our male allies, which is super important, and we certainly need progress. I'm going to talk at a speed of knots. The recent Lovelace report published by We Are Tech Women and Oliver Wyman found that the UK's tech sector is losing between £2 billion and £3.5 billion because women are leaving the industry or being pushed into non-technical roles. Now, that's a huge waste of talent and potential. Keeping women in tech isn't just a question of fairness, it's about what's right for the economy and for innovation. Yeah. And when women are in the room, the consequences show. Too often, when women aren't in the room, the consequences show. Too often, products and systems are designed mainly by men, deliver the best for men. From voice recognition software that fails to understand women's voices, to health apps that ignore women's biology, to car safety testing still based on the male body. If we want technology for everyone, it must be designed by everyone. Yeah. Right across the country, there are great organisations such as Innovator, STEMETS, Tech She Can, Code First Girls, to name just a few, that have been fighting for change for years in this field, mentoring, training and inspiring the next generation, and they deserve our thanks and continued support. It was wonderful to be asked to be on the front row at Labour Party conference just recently as the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Tech, Liz Kendall, announced that she was creating a Women in Tech task force. It's a real step forward and I look forward to it being resourced and empowered to deliver. The priorities are clear. We need inspiration and education of the next generation and existing people that would like a career switch perhaps. Greater transparency on gender data, action to retain women at mid-career, incentives for firms to embed inclusion in design and innovation, and an intersectional approach that recognises every barrier of race, class, disability and sexuality. Ada Lovelace taught us that imagination is the engine of invention, and if we apply the same imagination to how we build our industries, we'll not only create fairer workplaces, we'll create better technology and deliver greater economic growth for Britain. Thank you.
Mr. Swallow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the Honourable Member for Morecambe and Lonsdale and so many others have so expertly touched on Ada Lovelace's story, I thought I might, with your indulgence, touch on another champion of 19th century science who has always inspired me Mary Anning, a pioneering paleontologist renowned for her significant geological discoveries on the Dorset coast. Mary's findings heavily influence how scientists now understand prehistoric life. She discovered the first complete plesiosaur skeleton. She could say it better than me, and the Ichthyosaurus as well. But she was held back from proper recognition she so badly deserved because she was working class, because she was uneducated, and because she was a woman. I've always been inspired by her story, and I know that many girls and women across the country have too, including Bracknell's all-girls robotics team, the Real Tech Bots, who were crowned the world champions at the first LEGO League International Open earlier this year. Made up of school pupils aged between 9 to 15, they beat 96 teams and 11 countries to fly the flag, the STEM flag, for Bracknell and the UK, and we're all extremely proud of them. According to the BCS Chartered Institute for IT, if we continue at our current rate, it will take women 283 years to make up an equal share of the tech workforce. And when we are facing the development of AI at such rapid pace, and AI is shaped ultimately by its designers, this lack of diversity should worry us all. That's why it's so important that the Secretary of State for Science has, as we've just heard, set out a new Women's Tech Task Force to, in her words, because I think the words of a woman here are more important than mine, to finally smash those glass ceilings, because Britain's future shouldn't just be shaped by the tech bros in Silicon Valley, but our tech sisters right here in the UK. And I will just briefly reflect that whilst other parties are arguing against diversity initiatives, it is important that this government is recognising that economic growth must be underpinned by shared economic benefits to everyone. And I'd finally just like to turn to remarks made by the Honourable Member for St Neots and others about this important intersection between Ada's mathematical legacy, but also the arts that so influenced her. She often blended mathematics with art, predicting the use of computers in music and visual art as well as other things, and wrote that we may say most aptly that the analytical engine weaves algebraical patterns just as the loom weaves flowers and leaves.
I've got 3 more people to speak, and I can only allow 2 minutes for each one of you to get you all in.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be here and to serve under your chairmanship. Thank you very much to my right good friend and the Honourable Member for Morecambe and Lunesdale for securing the debate. We are, of course, here to celebrate Ada Lovelace Day, a day to celebrate women in STEM across the country and across the world. When this debate came up and I spotted it on the order paper, I was reminded of the 12th of July last year, when I received a Facebook message, of all things, from a former pupil. I have no idea how she found me. And she just that day passed out from getting her doctorate in astrophysics and had placed a note into her thesis in the acknowledgements, thanking me for, and I quote, being so inspiring and enthusiastic and planting the seed by asking me the all-important question once after class. Have you ever considered studying astrophysics at university? Now, that doesn't sound like that's an exact quote. I suspect there was possibly more sarcasm in there when that quote was actually made. But it did make me reflect at the time, and continue to do so now, that we should never miss that opportunity to ask that question of that young person. But we do need to go further and faster. We need women working in STEM and women teaching STEM. We also need to change the way that we do this. We need to talk about adjectives and not just verbs. Yeah. We need to talk about the beauty of mathematics. It's hard to describe to a non-mathematician, but it is so beautiful. We need to talk about the creativity of physics. We need to talk about how caring some of the life sciences can be. We need to talk about the adjectives, not just the verbs. We also need to make sure we have a cross-governmental response to encourage more people into STEM. It's DFE, it's DCIT, it's DWP, and way further afield. And in my last 15 seconds, we need parity of esteem for vocational courses in STEM. We need access to triple sciences for more kids, not just the highest achievers. We need the things in the Employment Rights Bill to be there. We need women in the Tech Task Force. And here's hoping that soon every day can be Ada Lovelace Day.
Sabrina Brayton, Brackenridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I must take this opportunity to thank my honourable friend for Morecambe and Lunesdale for giving us all this opportunity on Ada Lovelace's Day to celebrate not just a brilliant mathematician but a trailblazer who smashed a remarkable early glass ceiling, proving that women could and should shape the future of science and technology. Ada wrote the first algorithm for a computing machine in the 19th century. Imagine that. While many were telling women to stick to sewing, she was coding the future. And that message is so very important for every young girl to hear, to dream big. I speak as someone who had spent 25 years teaching chemistry, encouraging girls to explore their natural intellectual curiosity and excel in STEM with confidence. Over the years, unfortunately, I have also seen talent stunted, not by ability, but by stereotypes and lack of role models. Too often, brilliant girls quietly sideline themselves from physics or computing because culture says that's not for you. Well, I've always said nonsense to that. The Royal Society's research shows that the scale of the challenge continues. By years 7 to 9, girls' interest in science has dropped from 75% to 65%, whilst boys' interest remains steady. So we must continue to challenge and tackle gender inequality and enormous barriers faced by girls, especially from working-class backgrounds.
Thank you, Chair. I think we'll need a longer debate next year. I speak today as someone hugely positive about our technological future, but also as someone who recognises that we are grappling with serious questions defining our futures. Like it or not, and trust it or not, information technology defines our age. There isn't an off switch, and it is a dereliction of everyone's duty to pretend there is, to blithely insist that we can roll it back, or that halting progress will mean that we somehow protect a version of our lives. If we don't endeavour to understand and take control of this industrial revolution, like we mastered the last one, then it will inevitably assert unacceptable influence over our lives and our national sovereignty. Ada Lovelace's legacy presents profound opportunities for us all, but there are risks which we must mitigate. These risks are undeniable, but the benefits to the industrial revolution that we're living through, we must all work together to ensure Ada's computational legacy benefits all, with women and girls and diverse communities included by design, not as an afterthought. This is why I was so proud to support my constituents, Hazel McPherson and Jess Matthews, to develop a national first in Western-super-Mare, Seaside's the coastal cyber event at our awesome conference venue, the Grand Pier. Hazel and Jess brought internationally renowned cyber experts to join over 300 local business leaders, educators and 80 students, all about cyber knowledge and resilience. Cyber is not just for the city, it's for the seaside as well. Events like this were how we embody the spirit of Ada Lovelace. It's how we innovate and engage our communities. Nothing about us without us. If the UK hopes to fulfil the ambition of the AI Opportunities Action Plan, we've got a lot of work to do to encourage women into STEM. BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, found in their annual Gender Diversity Report, published next week, if gender representation in the tech sector were equal to the workforce norm, there would have to be an additional 530,000 women working in the UK's tech sector. It's huge. It will take a whole system approach from schools, apprenticeships, universities and lifelong learning. There's loads more, but I've run out of time. Thank you very much.
Lopez to wind up.
No, it's Victoria Collins.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Victoria Collins. My apologies. I've only just been given my instructions.
Thank you, Ms Furniss. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I congratulate the Honourable Member for Morecambe and Lonsdale for securing this fantastic debate. As the Lib Dem spokesperson for Science, Innovation and Technology, and as the daughter of a woman who studied engineering, I am delighted to contribute to this debate marking Ada Lovelace Day. In today's increasingly technological world, Ada's vision is more relevant than ever and is vital that we celebrate her achievements and the opportunities they continue to inspire. In honouring Ada Lovelace's legacy, we must also confront the challenges that have been put forward today. In 2024, for every one woman working in STEM, there are 3 men. Women are less likely to be encouraged to study physics at school, start coding or pursue engineering in university. There may be an upward trend in the proportion of women in STEM, but the workforce is still not equal. Stereotypes in education, the lack of female role model biases in university act as systemic barriers to inclusion for women in STEM that so many have mentioned today. And as many have also mentioned, is failing to empower women in STEM isn't just a loss for women, it's a loss for all of us, for science, for innovation, and for the economy. And that's why when I started a tech company, the very first thing I did was look for mentors, because I felt I couldn't do it without them. And it was by interviewing and talking to so many great women that I felt inspired and able to move forward. Ada Lovelace stands as a shining example of a woman who shattered barriers, paving the way for modern science and innovation. Yet far too many, like her, have been erased from history. Rosalind Franklin's image of DNA was crucial, yet the Nobel for this discovery went to 3 men. Esther Lederberg made breakthrough in genetics, breakthroughs overshadowed by her husband's receipt of this Nobel. And Dorothy Hodgkin was unusually referenced in her press for her scientific achievement as an Oxford housewife wins Nobel. And she still remains the only British woman to win a Science Nobel Prize. This is not good enough, and the instrumental role of women in STEM needs to be celebrated everywhere. In my constituency of Harpenden and Berkhamsted, Rothamsted Research stands as a strong example of inclusion. Pioneers like Catherine Warrington and Winfred Blenchley worked at Rothamsted Research and considered the first women in the UK to break into the field of agricultural science. And it's been wonderful to hear so many of the women in initiatives from members across the debate today. In 2014, however, the House of Commons Science and Technology Committee stated that the lack of women in STEM is a leaky pipeline, as mentioned by the member for St Neots in Cambridgeshire. Women have the talent and want to pursue a career in STEM, but along this journey, systemic forces push women out at every stage of their career. More than a decade on, the problem remains, and today we must recognise that more must and can be done to fix this leak of female talent. We need to start challenging the core assumptions that push women out of STEM. For example, as has been mentioned by the member for Congleton, childcare policy must be reformed so that nobody has to choose between a career or starting a family. Doubling the statutory rate of parental leave to share would be a significant start, and the Liberal Democrats' policy of 6 weeks, use it or lose it, leave for each parent at 90% of earnings would support women who want to work. But in the long term, a committed vision of universal childcare is a lasting solution that would break down those barriers. But it's not just childcare. Awfully, the UNESCO report said that women in STEM are more likely to be a target of gender-based violence and sexism than in other fields, and we need stronger protections for women. More must also be done to include the inclusion of women and underrepresented groups, and as was mentioned by the member for South Derbyshire, better transparency around pay gaps and that progression and that place in the workplace. We need stronger support and career guidance from primary school onwards so that girls are always taught that women are in STEM. This also means talking about women in STEM that history has forgotten. Days like today, Ada Lovelace Day, but also International Women's Day, the International Day of Women and Girls in Science are important, and they start crucial and wonderful conversations like today. They allow us to reflect not just on what women are working today, but that women have done in the past. However, it is important we take these opportunities to push back, to show that not enough has changed and not enough has, that change hasn't been made yet. There are still gaps that need to be filled to ensure that women are able to fulfil their potential. For Ada Lovelace, to the countless women who have made significant contributions, history reminds us that barriers, not ability, have held women back in STEM. As a spokesperson for Science, Innovation and Technology, and as a proud female MP for Harpenden and Berkhamsted, I want to ensure that every woman in the UK can imagine herself at the forefront of discovery and innovation, and look forward to working with the government on such issues. By breaking down these barriers today, we can honour the pioneers of the past and empower the scientists, engineers and innovators of tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Julia Lopez.
Thank you, Ms Furniss. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I feel I should donate some of my minutes to some of the other honourable members here who, by the time they had finished their contributions, had effectively given a rap to the audience. It was highly skilled. I loved the Honourable Lady from Morecambe and Loonsdale's potted, warm biography of Ada Lovelace and her tribute to her beautiful daughter. And I was glad to hear of another father who has 3 girls, including chemists. My dad has 3 girls himself, but unfortunately one of his became an MP rather than a scientist. And this is an MP who hasn't even got the brain power to remember everybody's everybody's constituency names. So I do apologise. This morning I had the special privilege of visiting the Royal Society in St James's, and I was lucky enough to get a glimpse of its incredible archive. Founded in 1660, the Royal Society is the world's oldest continuously existing scientific academy. It was established by natural philosophers and physicists, including Christopher Wren and Robert Boyle. Its motto, nullius in verba, take nobody's word for it, reflects the commitment to evidence and experimentation that's defined British science for over 3.5 centuries. Archivist Keith Moore brought out the most incredible selection of gems, and it included the Society's founding register, and in it has the original signatures from Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Michael Faraday, Francis Crick, Stephen Hawking. It's simply extraordinary. The first female signature, however, only comes after 1945, and that's the only point at which women could be admitted as fellows. But since then, the register has included the Nobel laureate Dorothy Hodgkin, who revealed the structure of penicillin, Dame Anne McLaren, whose research laid the foundations for IVF, and Dame Sarah Gilbert, the Oxford scientist behind the COVID vaccine. Margaret Thatcher, a chemistry graduate, is also listed, and this month we mark her centenary. These are utterly remarkable scientists who also stand on their own merits and happen to be female. Keith also shared with me a letter from Ada Lovelace herself, who happened to be born at the wrong time to be admitted as a fellow. It reads, "You were quite right to make your letter mathematical. I can understand that language better than any other." Today we mark Ada Lovelace Day not only to highlight women's contributions to science, but as an opportunity to encourage more women into STEM. And my goodness, what can be achieved by them if we do? Just recently, I found myself walking in the middle of a 3-carriageway road junction next to the M25 as junction 28 works neared completion. My guide was an inspirational young female engineer, around 30 years old. She'd completed a degree apprenticeship in civil engineering, went straight into the workplace, and was now building the bridges and roads that impact thousands of my constituents' journeys daily. And it's a practical, clear example of success in getting women into STEM careers. And other examples have been cited here today, including women in nuclear technology by the Honourable Member for Tiverton and Minehead. There are too many people, young people leaving university, however, to a very tough jobs market right now, and at the same time, too many employers in STEM industries wondering how to get people with the right skills into their businesses. So we have to get much better at matching those two challenges so they can solve one another. Since 2010, successive Conservative governments have worked on those challenges. Education reforms have raised standards with a focus on maths, science and a knowledge-rich curriculum. Apprenticeships have been expanded, the apprenticeship levy introduced, and skills boot camps launched to support retraining in digital and technical skills. In my own constituency, New City College has been awarded a prestigious accreditation as a STEM Centre of Excellence with strong industry partnership. And I have local jobs fairs, which other members might wish to do as they get more experience if they were elected in 2024, to match companies like AstraZeneca to young job seekers in my own constituency. We also had things like the Women in Innovation programme to support hundreds of female entrepreneurs, with women-founded tech firms raising £3.6 billion in 2022. The STEM Ambassadors Network reaches thousands of schools, providing role models in science and tech. The STEM Returners programme helps women resume careers after a break, and this is something that's been discussed by a number of honourable members, including the Honourable Lady for Congleton, about free childcare for PhD, excellent point that she makes. I fully understand as a working mother the unbelievable costs of childcare, but had not been aware of the issue in relation to PhDs, and it's one that I would be grateful if the Minister could touch upon. And we also have the Turing Scheme, which funds international placements for students in STEM subjects. And we heard about many other initiatives today. The former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Friend for Richmond, made mathematics a personal focus, recognising numeracy as the foundation of opportunity. And the importance of maths was referenced by the Honourable Member for St Neots and Mid-Cambridgeshire. But there are still challenges, of course, and we've heard some of the stats today, including from the Lovelace report, but also some of those cited by the Royal Society, which has shown the disparity between girls and boys in relation to their own interest in STEM subjects. So I'd ask the Minister, teacher recruitment in STEM subjects is an enduring challenge, and one of the honourable members highlighted an example where he had provided an inspirational leadership to a student, and by simply I'll be asking the question, have you considered going on to astrophysics at university? It's an incredibly insightful moment, and I should ask the Minister what steps the government's taking to get those inspiring science and maths teachers into school and the classroom to encourage that next generation of female scientists and mathematicians. Also keen to know what's being done to combat youth unemployment, especially graduates, and use skills policy to match those skills gaps, especially those seeking to work in STEM subjects. And also what the government may be doing to make sure long-term we retain our position as a leading science and technology nation, especially in the life sciences, where we've seen some particular challenges in recent weeks, losing important investments like that of Merck in King's Cross. From Ada Lovelace's letter in the Royal Society Archive to that young engineer I met building our infrastructure, I have seen what incredible scientists and engineers can do, and I hope we will see many more young women have fantastic scientific and tech careers ahead of them that will not just utilise their talent for themselves, but for the good of others.
Thank you, Jane.
Trill to wind up for this side.
May I begin by saying it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Ms Furniss. It's a real pleasure for me to be responding on behalf of the government for the very first time in such an inspiring debate this afternoon. I'd like to begin by thanking my honourable friend, the member for Morecambe and Lunesdale, for securing today's important debate. Her touching tribute to Ada Lovelace highlights many things about her pioneering spirit. A daughter of the arts, she studied widely and passionately and grew up to become the mother of an entire field. Without her insight about the possible applications for computers, who knows where we would be today? A portrait of Ada from 1836 proudly graces the walls of Number 10, but her legacy is about much more than a picture hanging on the wall. It's a legacy of determination, achievement and inspiration that we should honour by giving women and girls every opportunity to follow in her trailblazing footsteps. I would also like to thank all the honourable members for their powerful contributions from today. From hearing about the Girls Enjoy Maths summer schools and the honourable member for St Knots and Mid Cambridge's constituency, the working class women like Kat and Emily, like my honourable friend for Lee Natherton, I agree, Northern women are some of our very best. I also want to pay tribute to my honourable friend for South Derbyshire, who I know has spent much of her time in this place championing women in tech. I may not be a woman in STEM, but I am a woman in politics, and there are nowhere near enough of us in this profession either. It's great to see so many women in the room this afternoon giving this issue the debate it deserves, and I'm proud to see some of our male colleagues supporting this too. Gender equality in STEM isn't just about fairness. It's about unlocking the full potential of our society. When women and girls are empowered to lead in any field, as this room shows, we gain richer perspectives, stronger teams and smarter solutions. STEM must reflect the world it seeks to improve. It is wrong that women only made up 16.5% of the engineering workforce in 2024, or that only 22% of those in occupations developing artificial intelligence were women. This is especially troubling as we celebrate the legacy of Ada Lovelace, a pioneer in this field. In fact, a report by the Royal Academy of Engineering notes that more diverse and inclusive research teams of the United States generated 121% more patent citations than those that were not diverse. Clear evidence that we work better when we work together. But diversity in tech isn't just about fairness or a question of patent citations. It's an economic necessity. It's estimated that £2 billion is lost annually from women leaving the tech sector or changing jobs due to barriers to their work. The reality is simple. Talent exists everywhere, but opportunities in the tech sector do not reach everyone equally. That's why the government fully supports increasing the number of women in STEM and supporting those that are already working in these areas to thrive. This begins in schools, with the Department for Education supporting a range of initiatives, including the I Belong programme and the Advanced Maths Support programme, which aims to improve girls' progression into advanced maths post-16, which received £8.2 million of investment from this government in May this year. This sits alongside our groundbreaking new £187 million tech skills programme, Tech First, which creates the opportunities to inspire tech talent from early school age up to entering the industry and beyond. The government also supports women who currently work in STEM roles within the civil service, with the government science and engineering profession working to help women with peer support and mentoring specifically targeted at those working in science in government. This work unites government, with the recent series talks by women scientists on their work in the public sector attracting over 1,400 attendees from 55 different departments right across government. It's important to recognise the work of our arm's-length bodies in supporting women in STEM. For example, UK Research and Innovation encourages participation through the STEM Ambassador Programme, a network of over 28,000 volunteers, around half of whom are women, that reaches over 3 million young people each year. Also, the Brilliant Crest Awards, which recognises pupils undertaking project work in STEM subjects, with over 50,000 young people in the UK gaining an award each year. It's also important to mention the great work of Innovate UK, the UK's innovation agency, which supports women in the process of creating ideas through to commercialising products, providing targeted funding, mentorship and opportunities for women entrepreneurs and researchers. Innovate UK's Women in Innovation programme has increased the number of women-led applications from 1 in 7 to 1 in 3, and an exciting new competition for Women in Innovation Awards will open next year. The UK's national academies also plays a part in encouraging and supporting women in STEM, with the Royal Academy of Engineering working closely with partners across the sector to address the persistent underrepresentation of women and other groups in the engineering workforce. The Academy's Diversity Impact Programme, Inclusive Leadership Programme and their Culture Plus platform all help foster inclusivity in what has traditionally been a male-dominated field. But we know that there is much more to do. The fabulous female Secretary of State was clear in her conference speech that a top priority for her is getting more women into tech, and she has announced a brand new Women's Tech Task Force, backed by BT Group's Alison Kirkby and CEMAT's founder, Dr. Anne-Marie Imafadden. Will bring together leading voices from across industry to identify intervention for government and industry to attract and retain more women in the sector. And crucially, women in tech are also women in the workplace. Women that are being supported by new rights on gender pay gap publishing, protections for pregnant workers, and an ongoing consultation on mandatory menopause action plans. The member for Bracknell has already beaten me to this line. But together, this work will ensure progress and innovation is led by more tech sisters right here in the UK and not just tech bros in Silicon Valley. In concluding this debate, I would like to pay tribute to all the women in STEM that have pushed the boundaries of knowledge and our societies forward. This, of course, includes Ada Lovelace herself and her pioneering work that forms the basis of so much of the technology we use today. I would also like to reiterate the government support for the women currently working to make the United Kingdom a scientific powerhouse and to encourage those currently in education to follow in their footsteps. Women in STEM is not just a slogan. It's thousands of girls in classrooms right across the country and countless women working across the sector as we speak. Listening to all the passionate contributions in this debate today, it's clear how we as leaders have a role to play in inspiring the next generation of women and girls in science, technology, engineering and maths. The talent is there in schools and laboratories across our country, and this government is committed to unlocking its full potential.
Lizzi Collinge to wind up. Thank you, Ms Furniss. And I thank my colleagues from across the House for their wonderful contributions. I'm also very pleased to see visitors from Ada and Porlock, welcome, and of course Sue Charman-Anderson, the founder of Ada Lovelace Day, and others who have travelled here today. We heard today, Ms Furness, from the Honourable Member for St Neots and Mid-Cambridgeshire, that maths is a worse topic for gender inequality, and it's an inequality that opens up very early. And I'm thankful to him for highlighting solutions. I also here want to highlight the work of the Good Thinking Society on identifying talented mathematicians young and nurturing them. We've heard today of many such excellent schemes across the whole of the UK, as pointed out by the Honourable Member for Strangford. But the question is how to link them up, including with, for example, museums like the North West Computer Museum, as mentioned by my honourable friend Philly in Atherton. And I was fascinated to hear about complete and utter chaos at Sandbach Girls High School, building EVs at school, from my honourable member from Congleton. The Bracknell's real tech bots, absolutely fascinating. Hazel and Jess, Seasides in Weston. We also heard more fascinating facts about Ada from the Honourable Member for Tiverton and Minehead, but also the practicalities needed to truly realise potential, such as financial equality and transport access. My honourable friend from Birmingham Northfield, my honourable friend from South Derbyshire and my honourable friend for Bracknell spoke of Ada's belief in poetical science and the false split we give between science and humanities. We heard of honourable members' personal and professional experience of boosting women in STEM, such as my honourable friend from Mansfield, my honourable friend from Lichfield and my honourable friend from Wolverhampton North East. We also heard about the need for good role models. My honourable friend from Weston-super-Mare made excellent points about realising the full potential of this new industrial revolution. What these contributions show is the strength of support across this House for government support for women in STEM, that women's potential is not being realised, just as Ada's was not, and that this is damaging our country and our economy. It was an absolute pleasure to welcome the Minister to her place, and I'm very grateful to her for outlining how this Labour government is supporting women in STEM and how we together will make sure that no future Adas are lost. Thank you, Ms Furness.
The question is that this House has considered Ada Lovelace Day and government support for women in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, I think the ayes have it. Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone. Oh, it's like a race, isn't it? It's like you're like running like this to try and...
Well, it's a weird one because, you know,